So first of all, good evening to everyone. I see besides Colin, Kevin, welcome. Sally, welcome. Kayla, welcome. Allegan County. Have a question for you, Kayla, in a minute. Nate, good evening to you. And Ken, good evening to you. So again, please don't hesitate to ask questions if need be. So moving right along here, net manager. Okay, so net control station training. So different classifications of the nets and net controls here. Net manager supervises the daily net operation schedules, times, net control station choice, and replacements. Operations officer. Now, we don't have an operations officer on most of the nets that I attend. We do have one for Hurricane WatchNet. Hurricane WatchNet, we have a net control station that changes anywhere from every hour to maybe 8 hours, depending on how foolish you are to be on, as long as that. But some of us just do. But operation officer is there to point out things that are missed and or needed, and to make sure that the net control and or the relay stations are providing correct information. So again, we don't have that per se. We kind of all take care of each other, and we'll get into that a little in some details here a little later. Net control station opens and closes a net and directs all net activity. So not a truer statement. Net control takes care of the people that break in. It chooses the relay it wants to. If several people say relay, we'll pick the relay station by usually call sign and or first name, because a lot of us know each other's voices, and then ask for that relay. But essentially, the net control station controls the whole net when in progress. And at any point in time, if there is an ops officer, the ops officer, if he hears information that's not correct or something that needs to be corrected, then he jumps in, and he'll jump in just like as a relay or anybody else. If we have chat, he would be in. She'd put those comments in chat to correct whatever was wrong. Assistant and alternate to net control station directs the net if net control disappears. When you're playing as net control, sometimes when you're on for hours, or I'll even use the example for the last activation we had for Skywarn. That was essentially a 5-hour activation, and there's always a bio or a potty break, whatever you want to call it, a bio break. That's a long time to sit, particularly if you're sipping on water or Coca-Cola or coffee or whatever it is. Once in a while, you just plain need to get up and walk around, stretch your legs, and get back to it. So you're going to have an alternate or an assistant there, hopefully, that can take over for the few minutes that you're away. And that person directs the net when net control, when he takes it over as net control position. So the scribe takes the information, and if you're logging the information, the scribe will write it all down verbatim. Very important for us as an NGO and or a government entity to almost copy and relay information word for word, verbatim. And there's reason for that, because there's liability involved. So that's something to keep in mind. I mean, if the exception would be clear skies versus clear blue skies, if there's no difference, but except for that, whatever you write down in the order that it's taken, you should read it back exactly that way, provided you can read your own writing. And that's a problem for me at times. Usually happens a couple times during a net, but most certainly something that you need to keep in mind, particularly as a government or NGO passing traffic. And then we also have liaison and relay stations. Relay station is somebody that hears something that you don't, or that can pull something out, or in general, but has a better chance of picking up the information than you do. A good example of that would be when we're on the Lowell repeater and the Grand Haven repeater and the Ottawa County repeater, and they're all linked together. A lot of times the linking is not the greatest. And so somebody who has a stronger signal that's on one of those outlying repeaters may be able to get it from their repeater directly and then report it with a better signal. So, and then a liaison would be somebody like best guest for that would be Andy, K8APR, and Andy is also Ottawa County like I am, but when he jumps into the Kent County nets, he acts as an Ottawa County liaison. Andy will listen to both nets at the simultaneously, being the Kent County net as well as the Ottawa County net, and he will pass what he believes to be pertinent traffic. If it's already at the National Weather Service, it's already been put on NWS chat. We will take his report, but we will not report it because it's already been reported. So that's what the job of a liaison is. We've had liaisons from Allegan counties. We've had them from Macomb County. We've also had them from Newaygo County. So that is not uncommon. That's a job of a liaison. I used to be the liaison when Tom Beeler was net control and net manager for Skywarn, because I am in Ottawa County. So that was my job most of the time, was listening to both and then relaying traffic. What kind of nets do we have? We have club nets. Most of those are social. Specifically, you call in, they have a question for you to answer. It's just a chat type of net. We have tactical nets, on-site communications. We do tactical nets for our exercises that we play with the state. That's a tactical net. Also could be a net that we are deeply involved in, like our Kent County net. That's a tactical net. Tactical nets will also not necessarily use call sign. We may end up using tactical call. We could be Bravo, Alpha Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo stations instead of using call signs, and throw out a call sign every once in a while. So that's a tactical net. Skywarn activation nets, most of you, and probably all of you at this time, are probably very familiar with our Skywarn activation nets, also our Skywarn siren nets. And of course, we're looking for county, local, ground truth weather data, damage reports, or siren reports. And that's a Skywarn net. Now, I'm also very involved with the Saturn nets, digital, analog, and HF nets. We have both types. We have a club net that we will practice different things on, and more of a social net, a check-in. Anybody anywhere is welcome to check into the Saturn nets. We have practice nets. So when we practice on our HF net for Hurricane Watch Net, to take relay information for them that they're not able to hear, because I've got folks all over the country, as well as assisting them with putting out calls and taking the health and welfare traffic. And that's, again, where you get into taking and writing down verbatim and reading back and making sure that that information is verbatim before passing that traffic. And then the Hurricane Watch Net, obviously, we're out there throwing out calls to the affected areas. And that net is kind of unique because we've got so many people. I think we're up to 46 now net controls, scribes, and relays. And we sign up for blocks as net controls and as relay scribes. And we pass that information on weather forms directly to the National Hurricane Service. They are on the chat with us most of the time, as well as Air Force and Army Mars. And a lot of FEMA folks jump in, and they just want to know what's going on. So That's putting out calls for ground truth weather data also, as well as health and welfare traffic from the affected area. So that's different types of nets. We got emergency nets there yet, and emergency nets could be a traffic net. Again, passing written messages between different stations. And I actually, when I was participating in traffic nets, I actually had to hand deliver them because there was no other way to get hold of this person. So I took it right to their door and presented it with them. So resources net, sending operators to different locations for tasks or needs. State simulated emergency tests and Skywarn siren net, which we talked about previously. There are logistics nets, like the Muskegon damage assessment teams. I was fortunate enough to run those teams when Muskegon had their straight line / tornado winds that went through White Lake and Whitehall. And I had approximately 19 people from Ottawa County Medical Reserve and CERT team that were going out and doing damage assessments. And we all use 700, 800 radios for that. But that's a logistics net. They would report the damage and where they were at and anything that we were not aware of. Hospital nets, Kent County. I was fortunate enough to be the HF communicator for the hospital net when we played that. Doug Lures and myself ran a HF station and WinLink station from Emergency Disaster Services. And between all of FEMA 5, we were the only ones that were able to make contact with out-of-state hospitals. Colin was a huge part of that as well. And so I was pleased to be able to do that as well. We made HF contact and WinLink contact on that net. So that was a practice net for FEMA 5, Region 5, I should say. And then health and welfare nets like we did for Helene, as well as Hurricane Watch Net. So we're there to take that traffic, pass it forward any way that we can. That could be via Red Cross. That could be via 211, which is, golly.
United Way, I think, isn't it?
Thank you so much, Colin. Yes, United Way. There's a whole other story there. I try to forget them, but I don't forget them because they are very useful. But the problem is even Salal Army doesn't have boots on the ground. The beauty of Red Cross is they will deploy. They have enough people to deploy into those affected areas. And without us taking that health and welfare net and passing it forward to Red Cross or anybody else that has boots on the ground, what that does is it frees up law enforcement who you usually can't get through to in a Helene type situation because they're too busy taking care of local things. So we definitely serve a purpose. There is also, we also forward that information to Samaritan's Purse, another very good organization, as well as Florida has their own hotline. So we utilize that also if there's a storm in Florida. So, and I'm trying to remember what that address is, but neither here nor there. I do have that written down. So are any questions about the types of nets? Anybody? Questions are, please ask questions. Nothing heard. So we'll move on. Pro words. I'm a big proponent of pro words. As Colin knows, I actually shortened this list from the last one that we did, only because the bigger focus here is going to be for Skywarn in our area. But these are words that I pretty much use on a daily basis when I'm doing the HF net and or listening to any other net. We did use a vast majority of these in our tabletop exercise Tuesday night. And also, we used them on the activation we had, the 5-hour activation for Skywarn. And pro words are a way to state something very short and concise that you're not tying up valuable radio time taking traffic, I guess is the best way I would state it. Colin, do you have a better scenario for that? use of pro words?
Yeah, so a pro word is simply to very quickly summarize as well as prioritize why you are coming on the air and why you need to talk to the net control. That way they know who you are, why you need to talk to them, and they can also prioritize whether they need to talk to you first or whether they need to talk to someone else who has higher priority traffic.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. So, top of the list, of course, is always emergency. Anytime you open a net, you always ask for the frequency. Is there any emergency or priority traffic that needs the frequency, regardless of whether it's HF, UHF, VHF, whatever it may be? Emergency priority traffic always takes first in line. And that goes for in a net. Same thing. Uh, if somebody comes in with priority or emergency traffic, emergency is always going to be first, priority is always going to be second. Doesn't matter how many people you've got lined up, if that word emergency comes out, they are at the top of the list and you address them immediately. Priority would be number two. Priority traffic is traffic that is not emergency, but could certainly turn to emergency if not addressed. Info is a great one. Also, people asking questions or either with traffic that needs to be passed, but not necessarily priority or emergency. Radar for Skywarn. Radar sees something, they come in. Storm reports are storm reports. Damage reports, same thing. So there is a priority system in place, particularly for Skywarn in this respect, that we listen for these words, and it definitely becomes a priority. Now, figures, and what I mean by figures is if you are reporting, and I'll give an example. Sal Army Saturn has an email address, and this is pretty sad. I can't remember it. Oh goodness. In anytime you're mixing letters and words together, like Saturn20.com, it would be Sierra Alpha Tango Echo Romeo figures20.com. Okay, and the reason for that is because if you're going on a web address or something like that and there's numbers involved, it gives them time to know that numbers are coming up. And so that's a very good use of term when letters and numbers are mixed up. And then also phonetics, big on phonetics. I spell, once somebody gives you a last name like Griffin, let me write that out. So I spell phonetically, once they've given it to you, Golf, Romeo, India, Foxtrot, Echo, November, how copy. Now, I don't have how copy up there because we don't necessarily put that on there, but I do have repeat or confirm. And so, again, you're asking them if it's correct. Break and resuming. So there are a lot of instances where you can use a break, whether you hear other traffic coming in or whether you're focused on. And the best example I can give you is last year, 2 years ago, we had a tornado come through, and I was the only one out of Kent County, and everybody else had to take shelter. So being on the net control, I was given the net control position and also the scribe position and also the NWS reporting. So what I had to do was, after I would take a call, unless another emergency call was coming in, I would say break, and then I would type out what I had to type out to the National Weather Service. And I stopped scribing altogether and focused on taking calls and going to the National Weather Service chat and inputting that data. And then when you come back from your break, this is N8NIF resuming, and then take a short pause after the word resuming before you go into your spiel again. What that does, it gives people the opportunity to know that you're back and ready to take calls, and that gives them time to get ready to give you the call. So anytime you use break, always come back and say 8.5, resuming, or something similar. But anytime you use resuming, always take that short pause afterwards. Repeating or confirming. So one of the other things I say is, besides how copy, and I probably should add that to repeating and confirming, is when I will take a weather report of 75 degrees, 56% relative humidity, 30.05 on the barometer, southwest winds of 7, written all down, and then I will say repeating or confirming or how copy, and I will report it back and then say how copy again. So that they know that if it's correct, they will confirm, which is number 12, or they will come back and make changes and we'll do it again. So my next one is over. Now that's more, I have a hard time when I switch over to VHF, UHF right after, or UHF, VHF right after a net, because I'm still in the over. Anytime you're on HF a net, you're always passing it back to whomever. You always say over so that they know that you're finished transmitting. So, and I have a tendency to do that even on VHF and UHF if there's not a repeater report by any type of sound that dings or bings or whatever it may be after the repeater resets. So like the 110 repeater does not have any, and so I have a tendency to say over because there is not a report at the end. And confirm, we've already talked about. And then wait, hold, or standby. I will use usually hold or standby first. Wait, wait seems a little strong. Maybe that's the best way to say it. Wait has always, I will say please wait, but it's hard for me just to say wait. That's almost an order. I would rather be a little more personable and say hold or standby. But again, once again, that's a preference, okay? Most of the time it's standby or hold, but rarely do I use wait, but all three do the same thing. Do we have any questions on pro words, procedure words, or call tags?
Hey, Dick, I have a question.
Yes, Sally.
It's so as far as repeating things back versus not, is there like a rule of thumb? Because for search and rescue, do we repeat stuff back? Do we not? What's your advice, your experience on repeating everything, repeating nothing? Depends on the situation. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, Sally, I think it's always a good idea, whether or not it has to be verbatim, because I know even now, and you'll have to excuse me because now the dogs are back on Thursday and I'll start running with the dogs again. I've only been out one time, okay? And so I believe we did repeat things back. It's what I remember. Amongst ourselves, the team that goes out with the dog, we just talked openly, a vehicle ahead or a car ahead, 2 dogs ahead, 3 dogs behind, something like that. But as far as the net is concerned, I think it's always, if you can repeat back what they've said, it confirms that you've heard and understood what they've said. Does that make sense?
Yeah. My thought is if there's 5 teams in the field, or a lot of people on the net taking the time to repeat back to them, that's kind of what I struggle with, is do I take the time or do I clear the channel for the other 5-6 teams that are in the field?
And I would agree with that. I think it depends on, and I'll get to that here shortly. I think it depends on the net and the severity of the net and the busyness of the net. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you. Any further questions on pro words?
Just a
Kylie,
quick,
zip me
Yeah,
down there?
just a quick comment on
Sure.
whether to repeat stuff back, if at all possible. So I would agree with both you and also Sally as well. I think of the healthcare world in which I work. And for instance, if you are doing a code, if you're running a code on somebody, in other words, someone's in respiratory or more presumably cardiac arrest, one of the things that's very important in a life and death situation like that is closing the communication loop. And the best way to do that is to simply repeat back what you have said, what you have heard someone say to you, so they can also confirm that you are clearly understanding what they're saying. Now, if the stakes are not quite that high, then and there's not necessarily a reason to always repeat back, especially like you said, Dick, verbatim every single time. But if it's something that's critical information, at least being able to quickly summarize it back to that person, that way you can ensure that the communication loop is being accurately closed, I think is always a good idea to do.
Very good. I agree. Very nice. Thank you. And then zip me up to the next section, if you would, Colin, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So things that I've learned because I can't say I've been doing this forever because I was a UHF VHF guy for a very long time, and I was a net control for a few years, but with different kinds of nets. But this kind of encompasses a lot of what I've been through with Hurricane WatchNet and SaturnNet and Saturn Nets, UHF, VHF, and then listening on nets. My first thing, and this is something everybody, and I'll give you an example here when I read it. Everybody makes mistakes. Own your mistakes. Laugh it off and share it with your contact if appropriate, and keep going. I have a friend who could be a very, very good net control. Beautiful, powerful station. Gets very disappointed when he makes a mistake in himself and shuts down. Everybody makes mistakes. Okay. Everybody makes mistakes. Own your mistake. The guy on the other end is probably going to know you made the mistake, whether it's a missed word or a screwed up word, or I mean, I do a lot of talk to text, or I used to when Siri was a little more friendly. The more they improve it, the worse it gets for me. But that's neither here nor there. So one time, I pushed the microphone and I started talking into the microphone like I was talking into Siri, and I included the commas and the periods and the whole rest of the bit. And it's just one of those things. By the time you're done and you realize what an idiot you were for doing that, um, you know, you got to laugh. If you shut down, the net goes down. And so you just plain have to, everybody makes mistakes. I have never been on a net where mistakes weren't made by the net control or somebody talking on the net. Blow it off, keep on going. Particularly if you're in net control, you don't have that choice. If you're in a Skywarn net and you say something really asinine, doesn't matter. The net has to keep going. You're under emergency situation, and potential damage and life threatening. There's nobody to take over for you a lot of times. So you laugh it off or you apologize for the mistake and you keep going. It should not stop you doing it. And the next one is the best way to do that. The more you do it, the more comfort you'll have, the better you will get at taking and putting out calls and your phonetics. I'm huge on phonetics. I am HF is more phonetics than it is regular call signs, quite honestly. And I actually struggle a little bit, particularly with people like Ann. And I'm not picking on Ann by any means, but she has a very broken voice. And if she doesn't give phonetics off the bat, there is no way I'm getting it. Now I know it's Ann. I can the scribe who it is. I can recognize her as Ann. I'm hoping the scribe can get it because most of the time I cannot get Ann's call sign, but I know exactly who it is. So I'm very strong on phonetics, and just putting it in place here. Practice writing down call signs and comments when on other nets. You can listen to a net and you don't even have to check into that net and sit there with a pen and paper and write down call signs. Okay, whether they're using phonetics, we always hope that we get a mixture of call signs in numbers of letters and then also once in phonetics, but that doesn't always happen. A lot of times you're able to pick it up. If you don't pick it up, like with N in that case, then you go back and you ask for the phonetics. Please repeat your call sign phonetically. Practice when you're listening to other nets. I practiced going down the road following reading license plates. Another great way. You're always on the road. Anytime you're driving, you're on the road. Do each out license plate or take 5 minutes, 10 minutes and break down every license plate you come through phonetically. It's a great way to do it. So practice writing down call signs and comments when on other nets and as assisting as a relay station or backup. Totally agree. Next one, number 4, know your net and act appropriately as net control. There is a time and place for everything. A social net, you can goof around, you can do whatever it needs to be. Great example is SaturnNet or the West Michigan emergency net on Wednesday nights. You can get away with some things. Skywarn net, you probably shouldn't be screwing around. Siren net, you can throw in a hey, how are you once in a while, like if Joe Bell checks in, WD8 USA, the man, the myth, the legend. I have no issue with greeting Joe as Joe. Joe and I go back a very long way, and I usually will acknowledge him anytime he jumps on. Do I have to? No, but it's a siren net. And I think he has a certain amount of abilities and qualities that need to be recognized as Joe Bell. I guess that's the best way to say it. You don't have to agree with me, but there are just certain people who will just about Elmer anybody and have been around for a very long time and have leaps and bounds more knowledge than most of us. And Joe's one of those guys, and you can take the time. Now, if it was on Hurricane Watch Net or if it was on a Skywarn activation net or a health and welfare net, no, you're strictly business. You're right there to do the business and be concise and move on to the next caller. So know your net and act appropriately as a net control in that net. 5, I am so big on this one you can't even imagine. Utilize your assistant, alternate, scribe, and relay stations. If I'll first start with the Skywarn. Skywarn. Last activation was 5 hours long. We had Colin, we had Kaylee, and we had Mike later on in the night. If you have the opportunity to utilize those folks, particularly like Kaylee coming popping in with information, I can continue to take calls. If you have Colin as scribe, I was very fortunate to have Colin as scribe, and I apologize that he was at a birthday party, but when it comes down to business, he is always there as well. That allows me to also focus on taking those calls, writing down the information in case either one of them missed something like that. I'm sure, and I can't verify this, but I'm sure Kaylee was on the other end doing exactly the same thing. She was following along and writing it down. These people are invaluable to you. Anytime you can bring on a scribe and a relay, it makes your job so much easier. And the fact that you have 5-hour activation, everybody can take a break and cover for each other. It is huge. The problem is, if you are a loner, if you're a one-man show, pretty soon people stop showing up for you because they think you're going to do it all by yourself. All right? You don't ever want to be in that situation because if you're the one that has to take cover, who takes over? So again, utilize, and I'll give you a Hurricane WatchNet As net control, sometimes we have a private chat. Colin is aware. I don't think any of the rest of you have been on for Hurricane WatchNet and been able to watch our wonderful chat program that we have. So we can have up to 5 or 6 relay and scribe in the chat, the private chat, along with the National Hurricane Center, FEMA, and whomever else may be in there. Our Army Mars or Air Force Mars are also welcome in there. And if you're putting out calls and you're doing all your own logging of weather information and rest of the stuff, those 5 or 6 people are sitting there idle. They're putting in time. They're not being utilized. And pretty soon they stop showing up or just leave the chat room. Now what are you going to do when you need somebody? What if your station goes down and there's nobody there to back you up? So the best thing you can do is utilize the people around you because they are invaluable. Number 6, practice your phonetics. Don't stray because your caller uses alternates. Instead of Kilo 8 Sierra November, how about Kilo 8 Sugar Never Mind? That throws people off like nothing in this world. Even as a net control, sometimes they'll come up with phonetics that are just ridiculous. And you'll go back and you'll repeat it using proper phonetics instead to encourage them. And I actually have a Saturn Southern coordinator for the whole Southern Territory that says Willie Bravo. Willie Bravo 8. No, Whiskey Bravo 8. So it's one of those things. His name is William, and he refuses to do whiskey. Now, after 6 years of hearing that, I know who it is just by the voice, let alone what he's saying. But anybody else out there that wants to take that call doesn't necessarily catch on. So anyways, practice your phonetics. Use regular phonetics. Do not stray just because your caller uses alternate phonetics. When you repeat back their call sign, repeat it properly. Okay, let's see. We'll do one more and then we'll see if there's any question on the first 7. Stay focused on your task. Listen intently. Eliminate distractions. Best example I can give you is when my wife comes down to see if I need anything. She stands there when I'm net control for Skywarn on the 5-hour activation or any other activation, the one we had for the tornadoes that went through a couple years ago. She'll stand there silently. She knows better than to. I can hear the door open. I know that she's there. Until I get a break, she'll stand there. The best thing you can do is eliminate all the distractions you can so you can focus on your work. And that work is taking calls and reading them back verbatim and or passing them to your scribe and listening for the next call. So stay focused on your task. Listen intently. Eliminate distractions. Any questions on the first 7? Nothing heard. HF. Let's talk about HF for a little bit. Use alternative listening devices such as WebSDR. Okay, and what I mean by this is I use web-based SDR radio stations around the world. If you do a software-defined radio station, what that does is it picks up stations from all over the country or their part of the country. I use the Utah SDRs. I use the green for West Coast from Utah West, and I use the magenta one for Utah and towards the east. And the issue being is I run 800, 1,000, or 1,500 watts when I'm on SaturnNet or Hurricane WatchNet. I am an alligator station. An alligator station is all mouth, no ears. Okay, I can get to California, I can get to Hawaii, I can get to Bermuda and England and Mexico and northern Canada. but I can't hear them on the radio because most of those stations that are checking into me are 100 watts. And it takes some getting used to if you're listening to yourself as well, because there could be up to a half a second delay, and you're listening to yourself talk, and then you're listening for the callers after that. So some people can't do it at all, but your brain does finally get used to it if you do it long enough. So don't be afraid to use an alternative listening device such as SDR. When I do that, a lot of people use the one-sided headphones so they can hear the radio with one ear and they can hear the SDR with the other ear. I use what the heck are they called? Shocks, and I direct them to my left ear so I can hear with the speaker from my right ear. And so they are bone conducting, so I still have some ambient noise coming in both ears, but I'm able to hear that SDR give me the locations around the U.S. From Utah east that I cannot pick up on the radio. Particularly the last week and a half, we have had that huge solar winds from that slice in the sun right now, and I can get to California, but I can't hear California. So then I'll switch to the green SDR, and we'll pick up the California folks. So there are alternative listening devices such as WebSDR. It doesn't always have to be radio. And quite honestly, they are radio. What they're doing is they're picking up the stations, anything that they hear, and they transmit it over the web as opposed to radio frequency back to you. So don't hesitate to use those. They're very valuable. Number 9, develop a routine that works for you. My Hurricane WatchNet routine is very rusty right now. In the middle of the season, I don't even need to look at the sheet that put out of all the calls that I put out because it's so repetitious that it just drives you nuts. But you're looking for specific things from specific areas, so you're saying the same thing over and over and over. It's almost a pleasure to read the when the new forecast comes out, just so you can break the routine up a little bit. But develop a routine. You know what you're going to say. This is November 8, November 8 Foxtrot for the SaturnNet. Looking for check-ins, anybody, anywhere. If you've got a copy on this voice, please check in now. Okay? There's half a dozen of them that you just go through on a regular basis, even for Skywarn, same thing. Kent County Emergency Services team, Skywarn, this is siren test for whatever date it is, and looking for whether you've seen it, heard it. It was a rotation. So on and on and on. Develop a routine that works for you and then stick with it and break it up a little bit from time to time if new words come to you, but develop a routine that works for you. Set a pace that you can handle for the tasks involved. I have a real hard time with this because I never freaking slow down. And so I have to force myself to slow down. But the thing is, you set the pace for everybody calling in as well. All right. If you're in a rush to put out calls, then the people coming back to you are going to be in a rush to get back to you. And usually you're getting pileups of 2 and 3 callers all at the same time. And so the best thing you can do is develop a routine that works for you. Or excuse me, set a pace that you can handle for the tasks involved also. Set a pace that you can handle for the tasks involved. So same thing, you are in control, okay? If you're trying to write and take a call and focus on what's next, and it doesn't work, then slow down and take the call and then write it down and then go back and put out another call. You have to set a pace that you can work with. And that same thing. If you're setting the pace and they're coming back at the same pace that you're trying to do things, now you got twice the problem. So, all right, the next one you're going to laugh at. Laminate your preamble, your closing, your call sheets, and announcement sheets. And this is, I just said this again last night. We had a Hurricane WatchNet management call. I can spill anything anywhere around. Okay. And I laminate as much as I can. If, if I can spill it, and I'll tell you what, I can put a drink on another table, and I could put my laminated sheet on another table, or my paper sheets on another table. Inevitably, I will spill that. If it's in front of me on a different table, if it's out in the other room, I'm always destroying something. I always knock things over, particularly with liquid in them. So if you know you're going to be on Skywarn net, or you're going to do the Siren net, laminate those preambles and whatever else you need. Um, Another one is all of my Hurricane Watch net, all of my calling, and all of the rest of the stuff I use. Like for Hurricane Melissa, after I've been on for 5 to 8 hours putting out the same calls to the same hurricane, I'm getting punch drunk. And so the best thing I can do is laminate the word Melissa and tape it to the wall in back of my computer monitor, so I know all I got to do is look up to see what hurricane I'm on this particular day. And that sounds kind of ridiculous, but let me tell you, when you're out there for 5 to 8 hours, things start to get a little crazy, particularly at night when you're not getting a lot of responses. So I'm a huge proponent of laminating the preamble, the closing, call sheets, and announcement sheets, just so you have them when you do have to utilize them. I would suggest, number 12, build and utilize cheat sheets. I have a list that probably has 70 call signs on it. It's an Excel spread that are my regular check-ins. If I can pull one or two letters of a call sign out, I can usually find them on the call sheet that I've made. Build tools that help you any way you can. Okay, and I guess that's what I would say. If you can pull out 2 letters of a call sign and quick glance over at that sheet and see, oh, I know who that is. That's WB0AKV, and all you heard was AV. There's a good chance that that's what it's going to be, because you have regular check-ins and then people from outside. So anything you can do to make your job easier as a net control, build those and utilize cheat sheets. 13, always have a pad of lined paper and at least 2 writing utensils near. Inevitably, your first ink pen or pencil, you're going to break a lead or the ink's going to run out. It's a given. It truly is. And I'll even blame Colin for this, part of this. We have a whole box of Priority Health pens, and you might get 2 or 3 uses out of them and they go dead. And so anyway, we don't utilize those anymore, but you should always have at least 2 writing utensils and line paper. And the reason I say line paper is because I'm left-handed, and I don't follow lines very well left-handed, running across what I just had written with the palm of my hand. So line paper is always best for me. But I think that it keeps things a little more organized as well. So again, always have a pad of lined paper and at least 2 writing utensils near. And particularly if you're scribing, if the internet goes down, you still have to have that information at the end of the net. So it's always good when you can't utilize a computer and or internet to be able to write that information down, pen and paper. And then 14, utilize the people that are operating with and assisting you. And again, I know I repeated that from earlier, but that is so huge. If you have people around you that are assisting you, utilize them. Otherwise, they'll stop showing up. They're not there just to listen to you talk. They're there to assist you, help you any way that they can. Utilize them. Any questions on any of those, 1 through 14?
I've got more of a comment than a question here, Dick.
Absolutely, Nate. Go ahead.
So I have found that instead of laminating things, you can go to FedEx office. I think it's called the FedEx office thing, and they actually have waterproof paper that you can get stuff printed on. So if you don't want to buy a whole bunch of lamination, that's another way um, to have some like quality paper, your documents without them getting your Coca-Cola spilled on and ruined. Um, and there's stuff you can buy at the dollar store that's really helpful. I found these plastic kind of envelopes. I don't want to call it envelope, but a plastic kind of sheath that you can put paper in.
Yep.
Then you can use one of those China markers, or like the wax markers to write on it, so you don't have to go through like a lot of paper. I've been using that to practice NTS radiograms and things like that. So that's always something I found helpful.
Yep. Well, thank you for that. Yep. And I will, let's see, how do I say this politically correct? I have been a printer my whole life, okay, in the paper and printing business. And so I utilize paper because it helps my 401k. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, that makes sense. Unfortunately, with the price of ink these days, I don't really have my own printer anymore,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Well, and the other side of that is when I do a Word document that says Melissa, I turn it on the 8.5 by 11 side and I use as big a letters as I can fit on one line. And so, and it's always in red ink in that particular instance. So, because it gets pretty long nights sometimes putting out those same calls. And if you'll remember back 2021, we went past the list of hurricane names. And actually, I think we went 10 deep into the alternate names. So, when you have that many hurricanes in a year that you're activated for, name is just something you need to read, not try to remember, particularly the Greek ones. So that's it. Colin, what else is on that list? Is there anything left, sir?
Yeah, I was going to say one other comment just to expand on
Certainly.
that. I would encourage everyone to have a Write in the Rain notebook with the Write in the Rain notebook paper. So I have found that very helpful for me. I've got my youngest son listening to you. He's very impressed, by the way. He's 4, so he's quite young. But all that having been said, so I like the Write in the Rain notebook paper because it's spiral bound, so I don't have to worry about loose copies getting lost or things getting out of order. But I also like the fact that because it's Write in the Rain, if I spill something inevitably on it, it will also not smear the ink and I can still read it. So that is also quite helpful. So whenever I'm activating from like a car or maybe from a park bench with a portable radio kit, I usually always try and have a Write in the Rain piece of notebook paper with me.
Yep. And the best thing you can utilize with that is a what the heck is the name of the pen? I have a dozen of them. Fortunately, they were gifted to me when I was still working. The space pens. There we go. You can
Oh
write
yeah, those are
upside
great.
down through grease, anything. But they're the
Yep.
best utensil you can get to write do the Write in the Rain. I have
Yep.
one of those and one of the Write in the Rain little spiral notebooks in every one of my go bags. There was another question out there. Go ahead. Nope, maybe not. Is there anything left on my list, Colin?
Nothing left on your list, but I had 2 follow-up questions, so just for the
Sure.
benefit of the group. So you have had years and years of excellent net control experience at this point, and you've trained a lot of people, myself included. How would you encourage someone to deal with either deliberate interference on a net or just dealing with someone who really doesn't know how to use their radio or really has no idea how to talk on the specific type of net that you're on?
Interference. That's a great one. And I probably should have included that because I even thought about it. Heidi and I just got back from our 3.5 mile walk right before the net. And that's one of the things we're talking about was in different scenarios here. First of all, you can hope that they're they don't have the intelligence not to put their call sign in ahead of time. Okay. And that happens a lot on HF more than on VHF. A lot of times they'll check in and then they don't get the answer that they want, but you already got their call sign. I mean, I'm a huge proponent in writing down the call sign, even to people that don't check into the net, that are just looking for whether the frequency isn't clear and it can't hear the station that you're talking to out in the distance, and then just starting to call DX and things like that. So I write that down immediately. Now, intentional interference, the best thing you can do on an HF side is ignore it completely. Absolutely ignore it. Pretty soon they'll get tired of trying to break up what you're doing and they'll go away, because the more encouragement they get, and I don't want to mention names, but there's a gentleman that lives over by you who will constantly let people know that they're interfering with the net or that the frequency is in use. And after half a dozen times, all you've done is aggravate them more to stay there and aggravate you more. And so the best thing you can do on HF is to ignore it completely. If it goes away, great. If it doesn't, work through it, and pretty soon they'll just get tired of it because they're not being recognized. UHF, VHF, again, one thing I can suggest, just last month we had the California net, SaturnNet, which is UHF, VHF, that I checked into, and they had a caller that was doing sirens and bleeps and swearing and the rest of the stuff for about 3 to 4 weeks in a row. And I was calling in on Echolink, and nobody could check in. Literally nobody could check in. And they finally got enough people to locate him on a fox hunt, and they shut him down. But sometimes you just have to give up. I mean, there are people there that don't want you there, period. And the other thing you can do is remind people that it's an emergency net. Could you please stand down? You can be kind. Calling station, this is an emergency net. Do you have traffic? If you don't have traffic, remind them again, this is an emergency net. If you could please stand down, we would appreciate it. And if they still don't stand down, you say, again, we need you to stand down so we can conduct this net. And if they don't, then we always have an alternative frequency. Now, we only say that in the beginning, and we hope that people listen when we do the preamble that says we're going to be on the national simplex frequency of 520 or whatever it's going to be, or jump to another repeater. And hopefully they don't follow at that point. But again, you do the best you can, and you hope that if it happens more than once on more than one net, that and I'll tell you folks this. I know that Colin is aware of this, but Sam's repeater records every conversation on that repeater 24/7 for months before it starts over, literally for months. We have found abusers for years that have been on that. We will take it out to people, and particularly blind people, to listen to the voice, because local repeaters are local repeaters. Who uses local repeaters? Local folks, right? And they have this. Everybody has a distinct voice, and a blind guy can pick out a voice better than most of us can. Particularly if it's somebody that that is on nets constantly or things like that. So we utilize a few of the blind folks around town to help us identify these folks. And we found every one of them. And so, again, if it continues, if there's abuse and the rest of the stuff, if you can, most of the time, folks will go away, particularly if you ask them to go away, and remind them what you're doing and how you're doing it and the rest of the stuff. If they don't, there's ways of finding out who they are. Was I clear enough on that, Colin?
Yes. And then as a follow-up to that, what if you have someone who clearly doesn't really know how to participate well in the net? So they're not trying to cause interference, but you can just tell by the way that they're talking that they really don't have a good grasp maybe of using their radio, or they don't have a good understanding of the net protocols.
I am a huge fan of mentoring. I think the best thing you can do is be kind to those folks. Ask them what issues they're having. Can I help you with this? Let's make a good ham out of this person. Let's do whatever we can do. If I can't help them, maybe somebody else on the net can help them. We can solve that problem. Let's make him a good ham. Bring him into the hobby that we all love. And that's where I'm going to take this one.
Very good. And as a short follow-up to that one, but I do want to open it up to anyone else who may have questions first. I'd love to hear what you might recommend to people if they are new hams and they went out and purchased their first relatively inexpensive handheld radio, 5 watts, and maybe they're thinking they'd like to try and run a net or check into a net. What kind of equipment considerations might they need to think of in order to have a good net control setup?
Uh, Depending on the repeater, now we all know that the K8SN repeater and the 110 repeater are very strong repeaters. 5 watts, you can be a net control. That radio, that handheld radio is going to be hot by the time you're done. You could be a net control. My advice would be to buy a good battery pack or to plug it in while you're doing the net so that your battery isn't depleted by the end of the net. But ideally, you should probably get a mobile radio down the line that puts out the wattage to where you can go from low to mid to high if need be to make that repeater a good solid connection. I will always recommend either a desk mic, but better yet, somewhere down the line to buy a overhead or a stand microphone with a foot switch so you can utilize your hands for typing and or writing while taking calls and putting out calls.
Very good. And then another question I had as well is rumor control. Sometimes, as we know as net controllers, we hear things on the air that are rather difficult to believe. A quick example from the Tuesday evening, March 10th activation, we heard multiple reports of 2-inch diameter hail. And I was immediately incredulous, admittedly, when I heard that report, just because we rarely ever hear of hail size that large. But as it turns out, that was a very accurate measurement. And in fact, we had hail reports come in that were even slightly larger than that. So, as another example as well, too, as you know from Hurricane WatchNet, if someone were to come on air and say, I heard that 3 people were killed in Hurricane so and so, how would we respond to what would we do for rumor control to make sure that we're getting and passing along accurate information over the air?
We will take all traffic. We will not pass that traffic. Again, if we can't verify it, and again, Hurricane WatchNet will not take without a call sign. We will not answer the call. That's the first thing. Secondly, again, we will not pass that type of traffic. We may, as you know, Colin, and for you folks that are out there, we discuss a lot of things in chat that we don't discuss over the air. And so and that's what the ops officer is there for. Net control runs the net. Ops officer is there to assist in what should and shouldn't be forwarded and or repeated on air. And I would not repeat that for the best response to that was thank you for your traffic. Is there anything further? And then I would not even repeat that back to them. Does that answer your question, sir?
Very good. Excellent. Thank you, sir. Anyone else have any questions?
Anything? Open questions, please.
This is Kevin. I've got just a point of information about what on your list for number 6 about phonetics.
Yes.
Where I work, we use a lot of phonetics as well, and it's handy for people who are not completely familiar with the NATO phonetics to have a printed copy at their workstations to reference if they all of a sudden can't figure out what a letter is supposed to be. And we have them laminated, so they're all sitting by everyone's desk, and that might be a good idea to have at your radio when you're participating.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. Again, announcement sheets, preambles, closing, call sheets, any of that stuff that you're using on a regular basis should be right there. You know, we have probably a dozen different above and beyond the new weather reports that come out from National Hurricane Center. We have a half a dozen um, announcements that we make throughout the net, whether it's beginning of the net, through the net, saying that you know, we would rather take a specifically, we would rather take an estimate than we would take something from like WeatherTap or something like that, because the WeatherTap information is like airport information. Okay, the National Hurricane Center already has that information, so I would rather have a ground truth data call that with estimates rather or machine specifically weather machine of any type, even if it's within 3 to 5 degrees, than I would something from WeatherTap, because they could be 50 miles away. And if you look at 5 different weather apps on your phone, they're all going to be within about 3 to 5 degrees difference anyway. So you're better off to go out in the backyard and look and see what the flag is doing, and or from your own weather instruments at your house, and report that. Does that make sense? Did I answer the question for you?
Oh, yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Kevin. Anybody else? Questions?
I just had one thing to add about the alternative phonetics. Just
ahead.
if you're talking to on HF with people from Central America or another country that doesn't speak English really well, it really helps to also know those alternate phonetics. If you Google like the DXer phonetics, that's what it is. A lot of them use it, and they're going to switch out in pretty much while they're talking, switch between the two. So it's really helpful to know both. But that's all I had to say.
Yeah, yeah, no problem, Kayla. Thank you for that. And I have only came across that regularly one time. And we follow on the Saturn net. We follow a Danish net that goes from California to Nova Scotia to Denmark. There's 2 or 3 people in Denmark, 1 in Nova Scotia, and then 1 in California. And the only one that they have actually used is Z instead of Zulu. And that's the only one that I have heard on a regular basis. But boy, I'll tell you what, you listen to airport and planes coming in, they use every combination of words that you could ever imagine. And so I can't believe that the air traffic controllers allow that, but they do. But yes, I agree with you, Kayla, particularly for DXing. But Z is the only one that I've come across that they use on a regular basis. Thank you for that. Oh, Kayla, by the way, how's the Skywarn program coming? How was your conversation at the club meeting?
I kind of forgot this last weekend, but I'm going to see him again next week for the VE test session. So I'll ask about it then. Yeah, I've been working on those ICS tests and those things there. So getting ready to do it Oxcom with the Allegan Club here. So yeah.
So how are you getting into the FEMA site? Because I've been trying to get 2200 done, and I've been studying and studying only because I was crazy enough to download the program onto my computer, but FEMA is shut down right now. So how are you doing it?
I did this a few weeks ago or a month ago. I forget, but I haven't tried it lately. So I don't know if it's up or down right now.
Okay. As of last weekend, they were still down, so I couldn't even take the test. All right. Very good. Anyway, thank you for joining us tonight. Anybody else? Questions? Nothing heard. Colin, over to you, sir.
All right. Well, I think we can go ahead and wrap up here, folks. Big thank you, Dick. I really appreciate all of the excellent work that you've done tonight in teaching us how to be better net controls, as well as your dedication to Skywarn. And not only that, but your example to us and to me in Skywarn and Sal Army and in the Hurricane WatchNet. Thank you, everyone who took time out of your Friday night to attend this class. This class has been recorded on Zoom, so I will release it publicly on my personal YouTube channel. So feel free to watch it as soon as it comes out. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to us. Many of you know my email by now because you've seen many Skywarn emails from me, but you can also reach out to skywarn@kcest.org. If you are not yet registered for our Kent County Skywarn alerts, you can do so at www.spotterconnect.com. All one word. Again, that's www.spotterconnect.com. And we would love to have you sign up for that. Other than that, I have nothing further for the class tonight. Any closing words from you, Dick, sir? Over.
Thank you all for taking the time out of your Friday night. It is a weekend, and I appreciate everybody that stopped by, and hopefully you were able to attain something out of it. Appreciate you stopping.
Very good. Again, thank you, Dick. Very much appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Friday night and have a good weekend. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Colin.